Welcome to Scoop World Order and a very happy Father's Day to all you dads out there today. We are live. Official visits are wrapping up. We've got a ton of information we're going to break down. We appreciate all you guys tuning in late. US Open is over, so we are going to grind through the night. Our own Nevada Buck was putting in some work, and we're real excited about that, so we're going to get into that. But first, as always, we're very thankful. We're grateful for you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. It's late Sunday night, so hopefully we'll have some of you guys on here ready to rock. Here's some official visit news, some big time commitments coming, a lot of good stuff to get to. And our own Nevada Buck was on point. He was at the OT7 championships today. I watched some South Florida Express, so it means he saw JJ Smith. Also checked out Aaron Nolan and the kids at the Elite 11, so we're going to get into that. He was live. It was really close to his house, so it made it nice and easy, a nice easy cover for us here on Buckeye Scoop. Bill Green will join us tomorrow. He's been killing it. A lot of good stuff today. But we're going to get right into it. So, my good friend Nevada, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great, man. What a day. Father's Day, a little 7-on-7 action in the morning. We had a little U.S. Open, and then we had a huge Ohio State recruiting weekend.
Yeah.
And Ohio State is just is continuing to kill it. So good day all the way around.
Yeah, Edric Houston was in town. He's obviously the number one player in the country. In me and Bill Banks' eyes, Nevada, I think you're close to an agreement. He's a super impact defensive end. Kind of, I don't know. He's quite Nick Bosa, but he's like maybe we've had JT Tumalo, we've had Jack Sawyer. This kid's right up there in the mix of the upper echelon guys. We're pulling him out of Buford, Georgia, which is a big pull. He was in town this weekend, but let's talk a little bit about your weekend because you live out in Southern California, God's country, beautiful part of the world, and you had two massive events that were actually coordinated together because the Elite 11 finals were this weekend, and you saw names like Dylan Raiola, Aaron Nolan, Julian Sang. Julian Sang, I believe, was the winner. A lot of big time talent, and they coordinated that with OT7, which is kind of the Super Bowl of 7-on-7, which features South Florida Express. I mean, there's about 12 to 15 teams in that are the best 7-on-7 teams in the country. You were able to check out both. What were your impressions? Start with Elite 11 because that went first. What were your impressions of Elite 11, Aaron Nolan, Dylan Raiola? Just what were your thoughts on that, seeing that up close and personal?
Well, I think the reality is of the Elite 11 is, obviously it favors the passers and it doesn't, factor in other, intangibles. It also, there's a written component of it as well. So I imagine that's how Sand won the thing because he wasn't the best player out there on the field. The best player on the field for most of the Elite 11 was clearly Aaron Nolan, with Raiola right behind him, in my opinion. Then they went to the 7-on-7 portion, and Raiola tore it up. He had like 4 touchdown passes in like 15 minutes. Nolan kind of struggled. So I had those two guys 1-2. Raiola's going to be a good player. I mean, it's easy to hate on the kid, and I wanted to, but he's a really good player. He's a really good quarterback. But Ayers terrific. Ayers everything that you want in an Ohio State quarterback and a modern college football quarterback. Big sturdy kid, big strong arm. The one weakness in his game is he tends to stare down his receivers. He doesn't. When he went to the 7-on-7, he did better when he was able to kind of give him one look off to the left, then look to the right. But when he was staring the guys down, he had a little bit of trouble. But other than that, he's accurate, got the big arm, strong, fast. Everything that you want in a modern quarterback. So I couldn't have been more impressed, and a great kid too. So Ohio State's getting a really, really good one there, and a guy that's really fitting the Ohio State offense perfectly. Jaden Davis, the guy that we were chasing, was just wildly inaccurate the whole week. He was spraying the ball all over the field the whole weekend. So I don't see it with him. I just don't see it. And maybe I'll be wrong, but in my opinion, Raiola good, Jaden Davis not so good, and Aaron Nolan really good as well. So that's how I kind of looked at them. Those are the guys that I was really paying that much attention to. In the 7-on-7 tournament, got a chance to see JJ. But JJ is, you have to understand, when you go to this OT7, it's the Super Bowl of 7-on-7. So all the athletes are big, strong, fast, athletic, and JJ's just a different caliber of athlete. He's just a different guy, and they were doubling him the whole time, rolling guys over, trying to take the top off the guy. But he was just outstanding the whole weekend. Just a different kind of athlete. Ohio State's getting a really, really good one here. And the one thing I can confirm 100% is he's solid to Ohio State. So any concerns people have about him, other schools, NIL, everything, put them aside. put him in ink in your class. Definitely going to be a Buckeye and going to be a really good one.
I think I'll start first with the Elite 11. I follow it real closely, and I think that a guy like Eric, who's an athlete and a guy that can run, and a guy that you could have designed runs for, he's hamstrung a little bit. I mean, again, I go the Troy Smith Justin Zwick quarterback competition when Troy was in a black jersey and wasn't able to run, like that took away half of his athletic set, and a kid like Air, you see him run on tape and he's not scared. He's a really sturdy kid, like he's a thick, muscular kid. So he's not a frail little porcelain doll that's going to get broken in half. So, I mean, again, the fact that he played that well when one of his biggest strengths was taken away from him is really encouraging, in my opinion. Because I always wonder how a kid that can run well and take advantage of that open grass in front of him, when they take that away from him, then it's kind of like tying one hand behind your back. It'd be like if you had Peyton Manning just off of his combine results and he never got to throw or something. Just his 5.40 and his slow tests. It would be a total disadvantage to how great like a Peyton Manning or a Tom Brady is, because like their strength is throwing the ball, not athleticism. And I think I don't want to say his strength is overwhelmingly athleticism, but he absolutely can scoot. And his coaches in Georgia know that because they run read option with him. And I mean, he is a freak of nature. And again, if you look at the statistics, I'd put Air's statistics against any quarterback in the country that played big time ball. So I'm really excited about what he's going to do. OT7 is just an absolute circus. It's just craziness. These 7-on-7 tournaments are wildly intense. There's a lot of trash talking. There's a lot of back and forth. I mean, when you're a guy like JJ Smith, it's almost exhausting because every kid there wants to guard you, because if they can guard you, then they're going to be getting a scholarship to Bama or Georgia or Florida, because you're one-on-one with the best player in the country. Nobody expects you to actually check them. And if you do, then that's a feather in your cap. But yeah, SFE did not have the best showing. They're a little discombobulated. I think that it really hurt the teams that didn't have their quarterbacks. They've had Colin Hurley, they've had Aaron Nolan, they've had a couple quarterbacks. Hurley was at the Elite 11 for the first couple days of the tournament, so they weren't running with him. And all of a sudden, it's like you get to day 3 and Elite 11 is over with, and then your real quarterback shows up for just the playoffs, and there's no way you're going to be in sync. So I think the teams that had the Elite 11 quarterbacks, unless they had a great backup, man, it was tough, because you're going against, there's no margin for error against those teams, and SFE didn't have one of their normal dominant showings, and it'll be interesting to see how they backfill, because I saw their younger teams when I was down in Naples, and they've got some freakazoid superstars coming up through the ranks. So they are far from dead, and I'm sure that they're going to be hungry as they get back into it. Well, Nevada, we are going to put on some film because it's Father's Day, and everybody deserves a little bit of a present. So we're going to put on some more Edric Houston film. Edric Houston was in town for the Ohio State official visit. He had a blast. He was hosted by Jack Sawyer. Again, this is a kid that you put the equal sign on today. We have a really good source inside of this one. But again, how confident are you that we get this kid, and how good is this kid?
Well, I mean, he's as good as any any player that we've recruited. You hate to put the moniker of the curse of the Bosa's, the curse of the Chase Youngs, or that, but that's the kind of athlete he is. I mean, he is just a freaky athlete from a freaky program, and he's going to be a Buckeye. And I couldn't be more excited. I wasn't buying it before this weekend. Absolutely, after this weekend, I'm absolutely buying it. Couldn't be more excited. Huge get for the Buckeyes. And I've always thought that you only go as far as your pass rush takes you. If you can bring pressure with 4 guys or 3 guys, and you don't have to blitz to bring pressure, it just makes everything on defense easier. He's a guy. He's a difference maker. He's a guy that he's instant pass rush, equally good against the run as he is against the pass. Strong at the point of attack. Everything you want in a consensus 5-star #1 player in the country, and Ohio State's going to get him. So huge day for Ohio State. This entire weekend might have been the best executed recruiting weekend that I've seen in the last 3 years for Ohio State. This was good. So we always say, we tell you when Ohio State does well, Will also tell you when they do not so well, they did well this weekend. They had it planned down to down to the minute. Everybody got good time with Ryan Day, which was one of the issues they had last year when they had a huge recruiting weekend where not everybody got the same amount of time a day, and that kind of cost them. Everybody got the same amount of time. Everybody got the FaceTime with the guys that mattered, and Ohio State's going to pay the dividends because Ohio State had a huge weekend, uh, one of the best weekends I can think of in recent memory. So good time to be a Buckeye fan.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think these guys, they're doing, they're tightening it up. They walk through the stadium, they do the little skull session deal, they do the full team walk now, which I think is a great ad by Ryan Day and staff. That's a Ryan Day ad. That wasn't an Urban or a Trussell thing. So they're really tightening it up. They get to these. This is a weekend where they're uncommitted kids. These are all uncommitted kids. These are all live fish. Last weekend was kind of the big weekend where you knock out all the committed kids and you do those kids get about 10 minutes, 15 minutes with Ryan Day. They don't need an hour like, Edric Houston and some of these kids from the South that, you might never see some of these kids again. So this is their official visit. They're not, if they get an official visit up here, they're probably not coming up for a game. They might come for an unofficial, but this is the last one that actually gets fully paid for by the school. So you better knock it out of the park to try to get these kids back for the Penn State game. I mean, basically, the Penn State game is the marquee game this year. Maybe Michigan State if their football season's over. But once you get into that football season, these kids make the playoffs. They're playing on Saturdays. They're playing late Friday night. It makes it a lot harder to get these kids up here for a game. So these summer official visits I think are actually hugely beneficial for Ohio State. But again, I think we did a great job. We had Gerby Lambert in here. I'm actually going to dig his film up. We haven't watched him in a hot minute, but he's probably the number 2 tackle on the board. I think he's I think he's a decent player. I don't think he's I don't think he's as good as Luke Montgomery and some of the kids we have, but he's a guy that we need just because of his length and his height. I don't think he's as good as Carter Lowe. But it'll be interesting to see how it goes with this kid. This is a quiet kid. He's a kid that went to Boston College. He's gone to Michigan. He's kind of been at more of the parochial academic type schools, because you don't really see many kids that are visiting Notre Dame, Boston College, and Ohio State that Ohio State fans are excited about. They always think, oh, if he's visiting Boston College, then it's a plan B. That's a whatever. But it'd be interesting to see where this kid lands. I don't feel as hot on this kid just because if a kid's considering Boston College, like I don't know. I mean, he's from Massachusetts. I get it, but it's really hard to get to a spot like the NFL from BC. And they used to be, a fantastic. When Justin was there, he put a guard in the league who signed for over $100 million for the Atlanta Falcons recently. But their offensive line status has kind of dwindled over the last, I'd say 5-6 years since Justin left and went to UCLA. When I was there, they had just a factory of offensive linemen that were really good players, guys that played really well in the pros, got drafted pretty high. Gosder Shirless was a first round pick my year, but I don't really feel like it's the same deal. Nevada, as we get into the last week of camp, how good are you feeling about what we've gotten done through camp season and through the first couple weekends of officialism? Put some Gerby on.
I feel really good. I mean, again, you came into this weekend and you're looking at some big fish, and you're talking about guys, Stewart, other guys that really were question marks whether or not how sincere their interest was to Ohio State. And I think what you've been able to do is you've been able to firm up that Ohio State's a player, if not the leader, if not the consensus leader, if not the silent committed leader for a lot of these kids, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And we were looking for Ohio State recruiting. We were looking to see if we could have a snapback season. We were trying to look to see if we could kind of bring it up on the defense because we knew we'd be able to recruit the offensive side. Ohio State knocked it out of the park on the defense side. Just could not have done better these last few weeks. But this weekend in particular was just a big weekend for Ohio State, and a big weekend for Ohio State recruiting, and specifically a big weekend for Ohio State defensive recruiting, which I know was great news. It was great news for me, great news for people out there in Ohio State because we need to improve on the defensive side. It starts with players, and it started this weekend.
Yeah, I agree. We've got there's a lot of good momentum right now. There's a lot of guys that are testing the waters. this Tuesday, the SFE guys are all going to be in town, so that means that they're coming in. I'm not sure if JJ's coming. He might be coming, but the young SFE guys are coming to work out. JJ might work out at camp, but that's going to be a big weekend for Ohio State, man, because JJ's got to get, they got to keep working on some of this NIL stuff. Some of this NIL stuff needs to get tightened up with some of the big fish, and I think that they're getting better at it. I really do. But that's something that as we are fighting Florida and some of these schools, man, you better bring it. We've got Brandon Baker, man, is a guy. He's out of Mater Day. I think we're trending nicely for him. He's at Texas this weekend, but man, he'd be a great little capstone to the tackle class. But I think I'd take him over Gerby as you watch Gerby Lambert again. Gerby's a big 6'7" kid. I mean, you can't beat a 6'7" tackle just because it's such a that reach and that height. Now he's playing Massachusetts football, which is probably as bad as you can imagine it being. So he's just mauling these kids he's going against. But again, if we could by some miracle of God get both those kids, that'd be as good of a class as we've had in a long time. But what do you think of Justin Frye's efforts so far in Nevada and the recruiting of the offensive line? It's always the hottest topic for whatever reason. Everybody's always obsessed with offensive line. It's particularly tackle recruiting. What do you think of Justin's efforts so far?
Well, look, I think the effort's been great. I think his pitch is great. His enthusiasm is great. Right now, I think it's he gets a 10 for effort. Now it's all about evaluating results. How do they feel about these kids? They feel good. They feel good about their spot, their how they did this weekend. They're feeling good about how they're positioned in the future. But the reality is they haven't reeled them in. But again, I want to be honest. I'm not sure I care. I'm not sure I care about if you get the best kids in Ohio and you get that, I know we need the national tackles. I know that, there's this talk that kind of goes on and on, but I'm just not sure I care. I care about coaching them up when you're here, and that starts with Coach Mick in the strength room and Fry in the offensive line room. And so, something, just get me able bodies in there. Give me the toughest kids from Ohio. And if you happen to land one of these national tackles, that's great. But I'm not going to be a hypocrite and cry about it if it doesn't happen, because I've never cared about it in the past. We haven't had a bad offensive line in forever, and I'm not sure I care about it now. But I understand why other people do. Do I want them? Absolutely. But there's just so few of them. These premier offensive tackles. There's a handful of them from all over the country. With Baker, he's from Mater Day. Everybody in the country's in on him. Is that a tough pull? Yeah. If Fry pulls them, will I be impressed? I'll be so impressed. Will I be happy? Absolutely, I'll be happy. But I'm not going to line up in the ledge if we don't get them, because I'm not sure I care.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the same boat. I really am, because especially I never cared before, but then when you add the portal in and you realize how transient it is both ways, kids coming and going. Again, we had 5-star Harry Miller retire. We had Max Ray, 4-star tackle, 6'7" kid out of Tennessee, transfer to Colorado, never made an impact at the college level. So again, I always wait until after their careers are done. It's kind of like, I think obsessing over tackle rankings, it's a lot like when people grade NFL draft classes like the day after the NFL draft and they say, oh, the Seahawks got an F because they took Russell Wilson and they took Bruce Irvin and they took Bobby Wagner or whatever. It's like, and then you look back at some of those grades, you're like, wow, that was terrible. I can't believe that you hammered a team like that when they actually had one of the greatest drafts of all time. I always like to look back at these rankings and see how far on they were, how far off they were. Because some are just they're cinches. I always bring up Laremy Tunsil, Jadeveon Clowney. They're number one overall and they're number one coast to coast, wire to wire, and then their first round picks. So it's but Andrew Norwell was a kid that was a 5-star kid that had a really good career. He was all Big Ten his senior year. Scouts didn't like him because he looked, kind of stiff, kind of a caveman, kind of a dumpy body, not real flexible, stiff, couple injuries in his career. And lo and behold, he's been playing for about 12 years in the league now. He's made probably $90 million in his career. So, a lot of scouts had that one wrong after he had to sign $3,000 signing bonus coming out of the NFL draft. But yeah, like I said, I think development is the biggest key in the world for offensive linemen. I think Mickey Marotti is the focal point of that. I think that our nutrition is a focal point of that, and I think Justin Fry's got to be a focal point of that. And this is the year Justin's got to earn his money. And again, I think that he did a nice job last year, but the deck was loaded last year. And I love Justin Fry. He's a friend. He's a guy that I really respect. And I've had those years where you're like, okay, we got Paris Johnson coming back and Dewan, and okay, we can go really get into the nuances. Well, now it's like you got to go find out who's going to start week one. And and when I've talked to Justin, it's I mean, he's had years where he was at BC and UCLA and Temple where it's like he didn't have three guys that could play, and he had to go find two more that really couldn't play at all and try to fashion an offensive line out, because that's what it is to be an offensive line coach. You got to find five guys, and there's some years when you're at some of these smaller programs where you might only have three. So I mean, it's at least at Ohio State they legitimately have 7 or 8 guys that you could play. You could put in there, it won't look like vomit. I think there's a lot of competition, which is great, and I think that whoever ends up starting at the tackles and the center or whatever guard position is going to be a really good player. Nevada, I know that we obsess over the line. Defensively, how are you feeling as we're turning the thing? I keep just hearing more and more buzz from people I talk to in the Woody Hayes and around the program. Like, I just feel like this is going to be a year where the defense is going to carry the program. And people think I'm crazy, but I just think that the defense has that front six with Tommy and Seal and Jack and JT, Mike Hall, it's deep, it's hungry, it's tough. These are guys that are playing for NFL contracts. A lot of motivation, man, especially after they gave up about 90 points the last 2 games. They've had a long offseason. So what are your thoughts on the defense? 'Cause I know that you're the driver, the engineer of the Jim Knowles bandwagon. But how are you feeling right now about it?
Well, I mean, I'm feeling really good. I mean, I'm feeling really good about the defense. I'm feeling really good about the defense in 2023, and I'm feeling really good about the defense in the future after this weekend. I mean, I cannot emphasize enough for people that are listening to this how good a weekend Ohio State just had. Ohio State had a really good weekend. They knocked it out of the park in a very difficult situation. They're getting things dialed in. And again, if we want to yell at Jim Knowles when things go bad defensively on recruiting or on the field, but you got to give them credit when things go right, because they've got the recruiting thing starting to dial in. They're starting to get the kids in, and I think after this year, when they have a dominant defensive year, it's just going to make it easier to recruit defensive players because people are going to want to play in the system. But the kids and the parents that were there this weekend and they get a chance to talk to Knowles, every single one of them's like, boy, that guy's smart. I mean, he is smart. He has a plan. He knows exactly what he wants to do defensively. He's got they presented a plan to each one of them in terms of how they would utilize them in the system. And for Ohio State, it's gonna bear fruit because they're gonna land big fish out of this weekend, specifically on the defensive side of the ball, and that starts with Jim Knowles. And I give him all the credit in the world.
I gotta put some KJ Bolden on, man. This is KJ Bolden, 5-star out of Georgia. Safety was in town. Run his tape a little bit. I mean, this is the kind of guy that, and again, of course, they started off on offense. You can see his athleticism, his speed. He's that Caleb Downs kind of guy, the guy that you're gonna probably start as either a freshman or as a true sophomore. He'll be in the mix right away wherever he goes. He goes to Georgia, goes here. His number one safety in the country. He was in town. He's the kind of guy we can pull. Buford kid. Again, we've had Buford kids on our roster recently. They're not all glued to Georgia, despite how hard it is to get. I can't imagine how hard it is to get out of the state of Georgia if you're a superstar type guy with what Kirby Smart is doing and what he's building, and 2-time national champions now. Like, it's really hard to get out. But hey, man, I mean, our guys are swinging, and like Aaron Nolan is a kid we just pulled out of Georgia. Jelani Thurman is a kid that, if you put him in a Georgia Bulldog uniform, you'd say there's their next All-American tight end behind Brock Bowers, and he came to Ohio. So, again, we've got a lot of juice down there now, which is great. And I'm really excited about this kid because he had a blast this weekend. I mean, these kids all have fun on their visits. It's the same old, nostalgia trip. You walk around and get to eat steaks and get to, the coaches love you and love you up and take mom out to dinner and all that. But I just think that there's a lot of momentum here. Now, again, when you're in that slugfest with Georgia to pull a kid, it is, until that ink is signed, man, it is a tough pull. But what would adding a superstar safety, another superstar safety, do to this defense? Because I'm like you, Nevada. I think that our safety play is going to take a massive jump this year. Year two, the defense, better players. Frankly, the Sonny Styles is getting more reps. The guys that are the true premier talents playing more. What do you think a kid like KJ Bolden would do to this defense?
Well, just again, it's a talent upgrade. And what people have to remember about the defensive secondary last year, I mean, we'll talk about safeties, we'll talk about the cornerbacks. I'll kind of lump them all in the same category. We've said this before. Last year, our cornerbacks had 0 interceptions. Then we look at guys that leave Ohio State, are draft eligible, go to the draft, and go undrafted. I mean, it wasn't a very talented group. Forget about rankings coming out of high school or whatever it was. It wasn't a very talented group of kids back there. And when you add kids like Bolden, if you were lucky enough to get them, but just with the players like the Styles and the players that are adding Davison from Mississippi State or Mississippi rather. I mean, those are the types of talents that you need to kind of improve your defensive secondary. So you can talk all you want about scheme and about guys and about this and about that and what you're playing and how you're using. But when you have elite athletes like this and you put them on the field, it makes an immediate difference. But you also have to be sober enough to look at and say, something, Ohio State did not have elite talent last year in the defensive secondary. They just didn't. And as a result, we suffered defensively. The good news, that ain't the case this year. We're much, 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 much more athletic in the defensive secondary this year. And as a result, the defense is going to do better. But it's not magic, it's talent. They say not the X's and O's, it's the Jimmies and Joes. And we got the Jimmies and Joes this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, and the Jimmies and Joes want to get paid. Again, I always say that, but I've seen it. I've seen it as a player. I've seen it as a coach. I see how these guys lock in when they're NFL draft eligible. Like all these guys, they tighten up, man. It's time to go get paid. They're eating better, going out less, get more rest. I mean, it all stacks up and adds up to have a really big time product. And the thing is we got a lot of guys that are really high end guys. Like you look at that front six, man, you got Tommy Eichenberg, you got Steele, JT, Jack, Mike Hall. I mean, big time NFL draft prospects. They're guys that could literally explode. I mean, of the guys I just named, any of them could be first team All Americans. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Tommy was. I wouldn't be surprised if Steele was. I wouldn't be surprised if JT was. I wouldn't be surprised if Jack was. I think that, or Mike Hall. Like, I mean, that's so out of your front six, I've got 5 guys that could easily be All Americans. There's no reason Steele Chambers with his athleticism and teams focusing on, sometimes you just look at who's going to be the focal point of the offense's game plan. Is everyone going to try to stop JT Tumla? Okay, well, Jack Sawyer's about to eat. Or they're going to try to stop the ends. Okay, well, then Mike Hall's going to eat. Or hey, we got to make sure we get a hat on Tommy Eichenberg. Okay, well, Steele's going to eat. So sometimes it's not always the best player because a lot of All American is just statistics. If you're the guy that gets double teamed at defensive end and you end up with 4 sacks, and then the other guy gets 12 sacks because he's getting singled up, then he's probably going to be the All American, not you. So that's part of the gig. But yeah, I love where this thing's headed. Again, the NFL is the ultimate evaluator of how good you were the previous year. So when you slide, especially if you're healthy, I mean, there's guys that obviously they get hurt, they slide down the draft, whatever, they find an injury at the combine or whatever, slide down the draft. But when you're a healthy guy and you work out, and then you still don't get drafted. I mean, especially after you leave early, like Ronnie Hickman. I mean, that says it all. If you're a guy that's a guy that declares and they don't think enough of you to take you in 256 picks or whatever it is, and that's it kind of shows how glaring our weaknesses were in the back end last year. So, well, Nevada, we're going to wrap this. It's late. It is Father's Day. Did you have a good Father's Day, Nevada?
Well, I had always have a good Father's Day with my kids, but it's a great Father's Day when the Buckeyes have a big recruiting weekend. And this was a big recruiting weekend for Ohio State. So Ohio State fans, you can be excited. You can be excited. This was a really good weekend. The Ohio State recruiting train was a question of where it was going to go. I think it's always been good, but now it's kind of headed into the stratosphere. This was a very good weekend for Ohio State fans. So be excited.
Yeah, it's a massive, massive weekend. So, well, we're gonna wrap this thing up, guys. I know you guys gotta get to bed. It's late. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Bill the Bank Green has some huge news he's about to drop. Monday morning. You guys better be on checking Buckeye Scoop because it's coming. It's a big recruit. It's big news. You guys are going to want to read it. We got goods that no one else has. No one has this one. So Banks can be bringing that. So I'm going to tease that a little bit for you guys. I hope all of you fathers had a great Father's Day. I also hope all of you mothers that had to raise your kids for whatever reason. My mom's, my father passed away when I was 12. So my mom was kind of the dad too for a long time. So all you moms out there that have to carry the load of a father for whatever reason, happy Father's Day to you as well. So we appreciate all you guys do with your kids. Enjoy your kids. They're the best. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We appreciate you guys. Shout out where you're from. I saw Mount Vernon. I saw Chillicothe. Hang on, I got to scroll up. I think I saw did I see Lancaster? I saw Lancaster. So shout out where you're from, guys. Put that in the comments on YouTube. I love reading where you guys are watching from. Appreciate you guys as always. You guys are the best. Again, comment what big time recruit, and don't do Edric Houston because he's kind of already in the mix. Who do we need to get to lock this class down and really take it to the top? Take it to number one. Give me one or two names. Put it in the comments on YouTube. Love reading what you guys write. Love your feedback as always. I appreciate you guys so much. Hope you guys have a great rest of your night. If you guys enjoyed this content, please leave us a like. Click subscribe. Also, click the little alert bell for when we go live so you guys are ready to rock and see what is going on. We're on very late tonight because of the US Open, but we appreciate you guys tuning in as always. So again, we thank you guys so much for tuning in. We love kicking it with you guys. Love bringing the good, great news. Nevada was on the scene this weekend, working hard, getting some scoop. So again, thank you guys so much. Also, if you guys enjoy the audio format of this, we are on Apple, Spotify. Click on those, download those, listen to those, as you're driving, whatever it's convenient. We're on all podcast formats. So if you could subscribe to those, that's a huge help to us. We appreciate you guys so much. So that being said, as always, thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. And thank you to all the fathers for all you guys do for your kids. We appreciate your fathers. I miss my father immensely, but I love being a good father to my kids. So thank you guys. And also shout out where you guys are from because I love when you guys do that. You guys have a great rest of your day. Talk to you guys soon. Go Bucks.